Okay, well, welcome everyone, and thanks for having me in your classroom today, or your rooms. My name's Virginia. I run a bushland restoration business on the Mornington Peninsula called Local Habitat, and we carry out bushland restoration works, revegetation. I do some environmental education and environmental consultancy. So a bit of a variety of works that I carry out. And today I'm here to talk to you about a project I've been involved with, which is the Greensbush to Arthur's Seat BioLink. So the Greensbush to Arthur's Seat BioLink is a large-scale ongoing BioLink project, and it aims to connect two large remnants of bushland on the Mornington Peninsula. So we have Greensbush, which is Mornington Peninsula National Park, and Arthur's Seat, which is Mornington Peninsula State Park. So the way this BioLink's being done, it's by improving and linking remnant patches of vegetation on private property between Greensbush and Arthur's Seat. They lie about 7 kilometres apart. So we'll be discussing planning, delivery and monitoring details of Greensbush to Arthur's Seat. So I think this session's going to run for about 40 minutes. And we'll just start with a general discussion about the overall details of the project. Then I've put together a presentation going further into the details that we can watch, and then we'll have a general discussion on the main points. So any questions welcome during the discussion or during the presentation as well. That's more than welcome, so feel free to ask any questions. And the objective of this session is that you have an understanding of the works that go into a large-scale BioLink project. So something you may all be working within in the future. So I have to mention OH&S, although it mightn't feel relevant right now. But you've all obviously been inducted into the OH&S at Holmes Glen. So I just need to point out, you all know where your emergency exits are? And your first aid kits, you right with that? Fantastic. So are there any concerns before we start or any questions, or we're happy to get rolling with it? No questions? Great. So the Mornington Peninsula is a biodiversity hotspot, we call it. So it's got areas of national and international conservation significance. And it's home to vulnerable and threatened species such as, we've got the white-footed dunnart here, Latham snipe, powerful owls, and growling grass frogs. Belinda, you like your frogs? You'd be interested in that, growling grass frog. And land clearing practices, farming and housing development's been the main cause of widespread vegetation loss across the Mornington Peninsula. And fragmentation of habitat is a leading cause of biodiversity decline. So highly fragmented and altered landscapes, they pose a significant threat to the survival of our flora and fauna. And we've already lost many plants and animals. So we have no emus left on the peninsula, no wombats, we've got no quolls, and a lot of our remaining species are declining. So the Greensbush to Arthur's Seat BioLink project, we kind of set out to address this issue of habitat loss by creating like a BioLink. So that's like a large wildlife corridor on private land, and between like the two most largest and significant patches of vegetation we have left on the Mornington Peninsula. So as I mentioned, there's Greensbush in Mornington Peninsula National Park and Arthur's Seat. So the people who are delivering this, so this was an initiative of Mornington Peninsula Landcare Network. So they're delivering the project, that this newly growing forest is already extracting 2,000 tonnes of carbon dioxide from the air annually. So that's just like an immediate benefit that we've got straight away. So the other aspects of the project involved bushland restoration. So 120 hectares of remnant bushland was restored, and that was on 28 properties within the BioLink area. So environmental weed control, of course, it improves the habitat value of the bushland for our fauna, and it also facilitates the regeneration of Indigenous flora. So it increases the habitat value and the biodiversity of the area. Okay, and the next thing we did is nest box installation. So you probably all know, but up to 70% of our wildlife are hollow dependent, and there's quite a lack of hollows left across the state, really. So we put in nest boxes on private properties that had an absence of hollow-bearing trees. So the nest boxes were targeted for species such as microbats, sugar gliders, owls, kookaburras, all those things. So nest boxes were installed, and we also fenced off remnant vegetation from stock. So I think there was 2 kilometres of wildlife-friendly fencing installed along bushland where stock was previously tramping the Indigenous vegetation. And then also incorporated in the project was pest animal control. So 700 hectares was covered with fox control. And this linked in with an ongoing project that's been carried out in Greens Bush for the last 10 years. So it was coordinated pest animal control across the landscape, which is very important. Okay, and another part of the BioLink was community engagement. So that's a large part of the project. And there were 40 community planting events. So all the revegetation was done by volunteers. We're up to, I think there was like 820 participants came to all the different events to help revegetate. And we also ran several educational workshops. So we did fox den fumigation, weed identification, weed control techniques, nest box building, such like that. So the landholders could get involved, the volunteers could get involved. And of course, the big aspect of this was industry involvement, which you people may most likely be interested in. And I found this probably one of the most interesting aspects of the project. It just involves so many different people. So the project employed people from all sectors of the conservation industry. So we started off with project managers, but there were bushland restoration contractors, botanists, conservation educators, pest animal contractors. It engaged with students currently studying conservation, so our local Chisholm students. And I remember Holmes Glen came down, Jeff, with Alan, helping on a re-veg site too. And the landholders got involved, of course, and volunteers. So, yeah, really exciting project. And I have put together a presentation to sort of go over the aspects of this. But I just thought I'd ask you all, so can you see yourself working within a BioLink project, and what type of works would you like to be involved with in the conservation industry? Does anyone sort of see themselves out in the field or carrying out environmental education? Yes?
I'm a bit up in the air. I don't really know what I want to do in the area. It's I'm still learning what kind of jobs there are. So there was lots of things you mentioned there.
Yeah. Well, it was interesting. I actually was involved in lots of different aspects of it. So we carried out the actual weed control works on some properties, but I ran some workshops as well on weed ID and weed control techniques. And I also had a lot to do with the BioLink planning originally, so writing up works plans for the individual properties. So you can actually spread yourself out quite well, but I think a real good kickoff is starting off out in the field, like Jeff and I did. Starting off in the field, carrying out bushland restoration works, and that's where you get a real grounding on flora and fauna identification, techniques, and then when you go to manage a project or discuss a project, you have a really in-depth understanding of the detail that's required. So yeah. I always recommend it's good to join a volunteer group or get on a bush crew.
Yeah. So I actually, as of Thursday, I'm on the Port, was it the Port and Western Port CMA
Port Phillip
Bush
Basin
Crew for the work.
Management Authority.
That's the one.
Yeah.
It's very long. The PPWP CMA. But they're working for Victoria Bush Cruise.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah. So, yeah,
So it's a roundabout. So I'm employed by by an agency, which then is providing the cruise to the CMA.
Okay. So you may be working, like, do you know exactly where you'll be working or?
The central region. So probably not down with you. Yeah.
Yeah, but we're working with crews down here too, and it's excellent. Yeah. It's great because you kind of get to work with bush crews or the council or Parks Victoria, whoever the governing authority is, and get a really good feel of carrying out the bushland restoration works on projects that are kind of ongoing and already established. That's another great aspect about it.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I thought the CMA was a good option, because they do work kind of across everybody. Absolutely. So you get exposure to everybody.
Yeah. What about you, Mark? Are you involved in any on-ground works or?
So at the moment, I'm still working full-time in my current position at Dan Murphy's as a manager. But I have started sending off some resumes just the other day to try and get a position in Bush Crew. You really want to just build up my knowledge of Plan ID and revegetation works as well. So, yeah, hoping something comes up.
Yeah. And is there like a friends group close to your area that you could get involved with? Like, you're probably a bit stuck for time, but...
I haven't really looked into it, friends groups or anything in my area at the moment, but yeah, I should probably have a look at that.
It's good, even if you just like Park Connect is a really good avenue to join up, and they'll tell you all the different volunteer activities that are happening in your area. But when you go for a job like on a bush crew, it's something I particularly look for if you've been involved with a volunteer group, so you've got a slight understanding of the physical work that's involved.
Yeah, okay, thanks for that. I'll definitely look into it.
No worries. So anyone...
Virginia, I'm not sure if you have the chat open, but
I can see it now.
Tyler's doing an apprenticeship at Citywide, so she turns up on a Monday.
Bayside for the crew, great.
Yeah, which is good. Mm-hmm. And Nick S is into animals. He's down Bayside as well, and he knows some good stuff about the plants and animals down that way.
Yeah.
And now you're on the chat. It's all yours.
Okay, I can see that. I just get a little bit of the chat.
Yeah, so, it's really off-putting. And when they all type lots in one go, it just vanishes, and it's. But that's all right.
If anyone wants to draw my attention to the chat, please let them. Can everyone see that?